are thousands more outside, volunteers most, to help with transportation, getting those individuals into that church, including former presidents and cabinet officials, dignitaries of all sorts, including this next lady who will be there very soon, Mica Mosbacher. She's the wife of the former Commerce Secretary to President Bush, Robert Mosbacher. Mica, very good to have you, and thank you for taking the time.
So many memories are flooding me today. Bob's and George's lives were so intertwined for over 50 years when they both moved from the East Coast to Texas during the oil boom to make their fortune and then enter politics together. And I go back almost 30 years myself because I was a volunteer in then Vice President Bush's office in Houston, and then later when he ran for president in 1988. So I go back a long way as well.
It's amazing. You know, Mica, I was thinking about it, knowing, Barbara Bush, of course, from Greenwich, Connecticut, the Tonyest of Tony communities, one of the wealthiest as well. The Prescott Bush family, starting with the president's father, well steeped in Connecticut and, Northeast of traditions. And I always wondered about that. Your husband as well, going to Texas and essentially starting from scratch and feeling that entrepreneurial spirit, in this case in energy and oil, what have you. But it seemed crazy in retrospect, I mean, the security and everything in an area where you didn't have to leave. You had the status, the power, the influence. You didn't need to leave all that. In fact, it seemed crazy to even try.
Well, Bob was the youngest child, and his father was a rags-to-riches story, had made his money selling penny stocks on the Curb Exchange, and later became a fixture in the New York Stock Exchange and had a seat as well.
Right.
And Bob wanted to prove something to his father. And when he saw that there was a trend towards the oil business that was just beginning to burgeon in Houston, Texas, Bob volunteered and came down. He couldn't afford to hire an employee, so he hired a secretary named Betty Ackerman as a temporary employee, and she stayed with him 55 years. He absolutely built the business from scratch, something which President Bush recognized. Many qualities in Bob that he shared within himself, and the two became fast friends. And then after Bob lost his wife and was looking for a way to channel his grief, he began to get involved in politics and was involved in all of the campaigns for President Bush by raising money and helping any way he could.
You think of how famously cautious the president was viewed, Barbara Bush was viewed. In fact, to hear it almost too cautious, lampooned in the likes of Saturday Night Live. Remember the Dan Carvey counted, not going to do, wouldn't be wise, wouldn't be prudent. Remember that? But he was actually the opposite of that. And so was she. But we forget that, don't we?
Well, they were an amazing partnership. She carried herself with such quiet strength and dignity. And I noticed that anytime she entered the room, she had a calming effect on him. He consulted with her on so many issues and valued her opinion. And, she had a wicked sense of humor. I'll never forget when I was so upset because I had a hit piece done on me by the New York Post, page 6. And she said, "You know what, Mica, I like some people, but I like many dogs better than a lot of people. So use the newspaper to line the floor for the puppies, and don't let people get under your skin." And you talked earlier about her being under so much scrutiny, public scrutiny, all those years. She was the epitome of grace under pressure. And the criticism only got to her when it had to do with a family member. And I'll never forget on election night in 1999, Bob and I were sitting with Barbara and the president at their home in Houston, Texas, the four of us watching election night return. And she had tears in her eyes, and she was visibly nervous. And I saw not only the qualities of such a quiet, amazing woman, but also the fact that she was a mother first, and she was fiercely protective of her children, and God help anyone who criticized them. She'd eat them alive.
Yeah. All right, Mica, thank you very, very much. Mica's behind these billboards that have been popping up around the Houston area showing those famous pearls that, of course, Barbara Bush made equally famous, and there was a rush on them. The costume variety that Mrs. Bush made famous. Women loved it. The nation loved it, and her.